All right, Colin, I want you to frame obviously your role with Children's Lighthouse. And then after you frame it, I want you to go into how your team impacts the franchisee, and really around the primary question of franchisee X is looking at the business and they're saying, how are you going to support me from a marketing standpoint? So frame your role and then give us an overview on kind of what you do to support franchisees.
For sure. So from a framing perspective, we cover all the nuts and bolts of marketing, from local marketing, national marketing, PR, social media, everything, right? My specific role as the VP of brand development is to really support that from a high level, make sure that from a strategic perspective, our franchisees have what they need. Our vendors are all in line, really all speaking from the same language, and then really driving that overall brand home. We're a firm believer at Children's Lighthouse that marketing starts at the local level, and I think that's a big shift from certainly any other brand I've ever been with, but I think childcare in general, right? We want to make sure that our franchisees win at that local level, and then we're gonna let that larger macro scale marketing organically happen, right? So we make sure that our local school marketing, right, is best in class. That's where our efforts go. Where we're constantly trying to spread best practices, making sure that the things that we're doing at one school are replicable at another. But we also recognize that no two schools are the same, right? And I think that comes from how hyper competitive at a local level our schools are. So again, we want to make sure that we start in those very micro 3-mile radiuses of each school and then spread out, right? So yeah, I think that's really the strategy at Children's Lighthouse, and that's really how my role incorporates with franchises.
Obviously, you've been in franchise marketing for a very long time. Out of curiosity, and there's a bunch of things that I want to unpack. We get a candidate to Discovery Day. Are you evaluating them as a human to start figuring out like what gaps you're going to have to fill if they're coming there and they're, call it more back of the house personality, like they're going to be really good, they financially equipped, they're going to know how to run the business. But when you say go out in the community, marketing starts in your local community. Are you evaluating, okay, in order for this franchisee to win, here's how we're going to offset it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, listen, not every franchisee that comes into our system understands marketing. Some are great with the accounting side of things. Some are great with the HR side of things. Some just want to work with vendor relationships. But I think from a support aspect, that's our job, right? Our job is to understand where those opportunities are and really lend a hand, right? When we're going through that Discovery Day process, you can get a strong sense when they walk out that door what their marketing mentality is, right? And what are the areas that they're going to be good at. And I think that's what's unique about franchising. And I already said it, no two schools are the same. No two operators, no two owners are the same. And that's what we have to understand no matter what brand you're in. What someone's good at, what someone has opportunities in, and then really drive home where those opportunities are. But I think that Discovery Day process is a great time to really have those conversations, and maybe sometimes just from a high level. And I don't think you ever get to understand a franchisee until you are really working with them, and maybe things aren't going as you want them to. But I think that's the beauty, and that's what I love about franchising in general. Just everyone's different, and there's different unique opportunities.
I'm gonna frame this in a large statement. I was at a conference years ago, and the top 3 franchisees are on stage, and number 3 went from middle of the pack to number 3, and I'm sitting out in the audience, and they ask him, how did you do this? And he goes, I spent 10 cents of every dollar on marketing. And there's a franchisee sitting next to me, and he elbows me in the side. He goes, "That guy's an idiot." I will never forget that for the rest of my career. But this guy was basically saying, like, I understand what's in the FDD, but in my market, for whatever reason, my staffing, my situation, the way that we behaved with customers, our customer acquisition wasn't deep enough to hit the numbers that we wanted. So therefore I said, I'm going to change my mentality. And so he can, like, if you really look at his bottom line, the bottom line is spiking too. So he might have spent more marketing, but that shift in the mindset was something that he had to struggle through, because clearly franchisees out in the audience are like, why would I do that?
Right.
So I frame it that way with another statement of, I've always found that it's not that franchisees are completely unwilling to spend the money. It's that they really don't know how, and most franchisors don't give them the blueprint to succeed. So they don't know where to go spend the money. How do those two situations connect with you, and what's kind of your feedback on those?
Well, one, and I think to the 10 cents on every dollar, there's an aspect in marketing, especially in our business, when you're almost a subscription-based model, right? But you have to be always marketing. You have to always be on, because there could come a point in time, whether it's because of seasonal differences, where you have that general dip, right? Or you have children leaving because they're going into public schools, right? So whether it's the smallest things or it's a giant Google campaign, that mentality of always marketing and at least always having leads come in, so you're on that consistent wait list. I think that's where we see our schools win, right? And the ones who are ultimately the most profitable, they understand, and maybe it's not 10 cents on every dollar, but that mentality of, I've got a storage unit full of children's Lighthouse swag items, right? It's something that simple, where they're constantly trying to get that message out. And I'm sorry, what was part two of that question?
Part two is that it's not that they don't want to spend the money; it's that they don't know how to.
Yeah, and I think that goes back to something I said earlier in your earlier question too, of not everybody understands marketing, or maybe they think that they do. And then you find out that there's opportunities. And I think with Children's Lighthouse, one, we have a really strong franchise network, right? Constant communication. We are, whether it's operations, marketing, we're constantly, again, trying to push those best practices to see what fits, right? And again, recognizing that some things may not work in every single market, but really trying to push that replicable marketing. We've also got really strong relationships with our vendors, right? And I think that's important in any franchise relationship, because at the end of the day, right, 80% of marketing is done at that local level. There's only so much that we, inside of our four walls at our franchise sports center, can actually do, right? We can provide all the recommendations. We can do all the creative, but if somebody's not willing to, go hand out flyers and shake hands, kiss babies, then that's a big challenge, right? So really teaching them that, but then leaning on our vendors is another big reason that I think we've been so successful at Children's Lighthouse.
I think one of the powers, obviously, that you can lean on is data. And so when franchisee X said, look, majority of franchisees, if you say, what are you an expert in? They're going to say, I'm an expert in marketing. And you're like, okay, explain it. They're like, I don't know how to. But when you look at data, and you can look at average cost of customer acquisition on one line, and then you look at what is the return of that customer on another, it ends up being a pretty simplistic decision on, do I spend on marketing or not? The data side of what you're looking at every day, does that equip you for the tougher, and you don't really have to have that many tough conversations, but does that equip you to say, look, if you want to get to X, here's at least our best judgment on what that's going to take?
Yeah, and I think it's a little bit more simplified than even what you just said, right? It's we have data to at least support how many leads we're getting in, right? And then ultimately, based upon our 72s to schools, we know what that average conversion of lead to it enrollment is, right? So we can feel fairly confident that any school should, if they're utilizing our tools, right, utilizing our CRM tools, if effectively, that they should enroll at a similar rate, right? So we're able to at least talk to that. But from an ROI perspective, childcare is unique because I spent a lot of time in the restaurant world. It takes a lot of marketing, and it takes a lot of selling burgers and pizzas and to make money back. But the lifetime value of a child at Children's Lighthouse or any childcare brand is a lot of money, right? So when we can really talk to franchisees and talk about numbers, talk about leads, talk about if you just get a couple of these kids in that door and those families are giving you money, that money is going to be made back very, very quickly, right? So I think when franchisees start to understand that, that's when those conversations of, okay, well, let's go spend a little bit more. Let's get closer to that 10 cents on every dollar, right? That's when those conversations, I think, become a little bit easier and a little bit more streamlined.
Does marketing get left behind a little bit at a brand like Children's Lighthouse? And I mean that not in a negative way, but you have like curriculum and you have operations and you have real estate and you have hiring. Does it end up being last on the list? And how do you navigate that as a leader?
Yeah, I don't want to say it gets left last on the list, but I think that from a core functionality of the business, operations and curriculum, that's just what the driver is, right? And I'm a big believer that we have the best curriculum in childcare, built from the ground up. Everything is ours, character value based, but our operations is really what makes that all work, right? And we talk about it all the time. Something that our ownership, Michael Brown, has really invested heavily in is making sure that we have best-in-class franchise business coaches to schools, right? You'll have a lot of other brands in childcare. They've got 30 to 50 schools per FBC. We've got 12 to 15, right? And we want to make sure that our franchisees have that best support, right? And I think in the 5 years that we've been here, marketing has certainly not been on that level, but we're expanding our marketing team rapidly as we grow, right? At the end of the day, without marketing, right, and without getting in leads, nothing else really works. But I think we're always going to be driven by operations.
I believe, and this is me as an outsider looking in, and when I've been at meetings with you guys, it feels more inclusive, meaning at some point, a marketing and operation person said, let's divide up our roles. Right. But it feels like in your business, like curriculum and operations actually is marketing, because what it does is it sets a referral source that is now going to drive more customers back. And you're looking at this and saying, how do I continue to put fuel on that fire? And it's more like an inclusive environment, which probably goes back to what you said on an FBC model. Like it's all built around like they're separate in nature, but the reality is it's almost all one universal thing at your business. Is that an accurate statement?
I think so. And I think a lot of that has to do again with the culture that the Brown family established 21 years ago. And that's something that we really harp on. And I think a lot of brands don't necessarily believe in their culture and don't necessarily believe in their values, and it's something that we all live by every single day. And so again, I think we've got to work cohesively, and nothing works without the other brand. I think we all do a great job of working cross-departmentally, because again, like if every school is unique, and we don't know the stories and we don't know the challenges, then maybe marketing isn't the right solution, right? If they don't have their house clean, then I'm not going to market there, right? But if the school's ready to market because they've got the right staff, they've got the right interior branding, then let's bring people home, right?
I think back to I was editor-in-chief of my college newspaper. So I led the editorial and I led advertising. I remember there was a bagel place. I went to school in Des Moines, Iowa, and I went to this bagel place. I said, I want to sell you a quarter-page ad. They said, great. They said, we'll continue to advertise based on how many come in for our free bagel. And so every week I would go to the bagel shop. I would have a bagel, and I would say, open up the cash register. Let's count these. And you would watch the redemptions. And that's how we did marketing or advertising then. Obviously, things have shifted a lot, and we've moved more into a digital world, but that's hyper competitive too. So maybe across your career, what are some things that have evolved or changed, and what if you had to put your money against something, how are you looking at distributing where you place dollars?
Yeah, again, so two-part question there, but I think so I started my career in 2008, and marketing then is vastly different than it is now, right? And that was kind of like when digital marketing just started to pop up, but no one really knew what the future looked like, right? And I think simply just the targeting capabilities that we have now that we didn't have then, or at least we didn't understand then, right? Again, we're from a local perspective, or even from a national perspective, we're big believers in creating multi-layered campaigns, right? Because we're able to target the same family with a multitude of different ads in a multitude of different ways, right? But 10, 15 years ago, you weren't able to do that. We didn't know where people lived. We didn't know how much money they made. We didn't know if they had kids, right? So we've got all that data now that really helps us to create strong layered marketing plans. And I think that's, again, where we really win. And I think that's that continued evolution. I think I'm very interested to see where the future of marketing takes us as AI continues to get more enhanced and continues to learn. I still think we're in the beginning phases of really understanding how it works for brands like us, and a lot of it is around content and copywriting. But I'm interested to see how that evolves into being smarter in how we place ads, the ability to place ads, and ultimately, having these owners having more tools that are going to tell owners, okay, based upon my market, how much money I've got, what these demos look like. Here's a very specific plan, right? That I can go execute through whatever platform or tool this is, and ultimately those franchisees start saving money, and they're more efficient in their marketing efforts.
I love the last statement. I mean, I've thought a lot about this. So, and I'll get to where I think things are going to go. If I go back to the bagel company, they advertise to everyone, and a percentage of people aren't going to eat bagel, and percentage of people might need gluten free, and they don't have that option, but they're still paying for that advertising. I think the beauty of what AI is going to continue to do is it's going to give us more of what is important to us, so that bagel company is not going to have to pay for an ad to someone who is gluten free, because that might not be a potential customer. So it's going to tighten up that. So it's actually, in my opinion, it's going to get more, marketing is going to become more black and white, because you're going to have the awareness side to say, like, this is why you should care about bagels. And on this side, it's going to be like, we know that you do indeed care about bagels. Here's where it gets delivered. And so it should create more of an action. So AI will be able to say, Nick or Colin, you have young children. You're starting to look at solutions. You are an affluent human being. And now let's make sure that you understand the awareness that this business exists, because this might be a solution for you. I think it's going to get tighter on that way, but I think it's going to almost turn black and white on both awareness and action even more.
Yeah. And I think that's huge for us too, because you and I have talked about this in the past. Our brand's different than others in that we're a much more intent-based brand, right? To the tune of probably 80-20. So we spend a lot of money on Google ads, because we don't have to convince anybody that they need childcare, right? You've got kids, you need it. We've got to make sure that like you said, we're not serving up ads to somebody who's 80 years old or somebody doesn't have kids. Not that those people don't matter, but their intent is not very high, right? So like you said, I think the stronger and the more learning the AI does to really help not just brands, but I think individual small business owners in whatever brand it is, I think that's the future.
If I were at a bar and a prospective franchisee, qualified franchisee, said to me, "How can I be number one in a system?" My first advice is have enough money to qualify for 3. That's what I tend to lean towards. Obviously, you guys are a little bit larger of an investment, but I say have enough to open up 1, have enough for a rainy day, and have enough to scale. Like that's how you're going to grow. The other thing that I've been saying more frequently now is I take that 10% and I say take 10% of the investment. I don't care what is earmarked for grand opening. Take 10% of the total investment and earmark that for marketing. It's still your cash. You're still going to have a decision. But when you come in with that right mindset, you've now capitalized the buzz building that's going to eventually build a snowball effect that should drive in customers. I know that there's numbers in the FDD that sets expectations, but in me setting expectation, I'm always like, take the 10%. If you want to be number one, you go heavier on the capital side back into building the awareness so that you get out of the gate stronger. How does that statement connect with you?
Yeah, I think it does. I think at the essence of that question, though, my answer would be follow the system, right? Because there are franchisees, and we've seen it. I've seen it in many brands. They come in, they think that they know better than the franchisee or than the franchisor, and that's not why somebody gets into franchising, right? They get into it to follow a system, follow a brand that's been successful, that's been doing this for many years, opened many schools at a high level, right? And then continuing to invest in marketing. I think our best schools have understood that, right? They know that for the first year, for the first 2 years, they're going to be the ones driving buses. They're going to be the ones opening up that school, closing that school. They may be there on the weekends. But they get that school successful. They're investing heavily in marketing. They're understanding operations and they're following our curriculums. And then to your point, right, then they're able to go on to number 2, number 3, number 4, number 5, right? But without having a successful number 1 and following that system, number 2 is just not attainable.
If there's someone that's listening to advice, thinking about this business, is there anything else that you want them to know? And it doesn't necessarily have to be about marketing. It could be just general on why this makes sense as a business opportunity.
The opportunity for generational wealth, right? Again, a very high net worth individual comes into this business. But there are a multitude of different ways that somebody can at least get involved. And the opportunity to create generational wealth by owning that building, owning that land, and then continuing on to number 2, I think that's the message. And I think as a potential franchisee looking, there's just not a business or many businesses like that out there where you've got a built-in revenue stream, and once you're above whatever your break-even number is, I mean that money is just flowing, right? And if you can understand that, you can get to that, and then really push for other schools. I think that's the most successful. But again, that opportunity for generational wealth just doesn't exist in many other brands.
I'll add one other comment on that, the way that I see it. There's very few emerging brands that have a 20-year history with a leadership team that is more impactful on the business than a children's Lighthouse. So this is an opportunity that really doesn't exist that much. And then once the fire hits, the opportunities diminish very quickly. And so when someone starts saying, okay, they got it, and you can see it happening in the brand right now, like it's gonna grow in fast pockets. So yes, you can totally build the generational wealth, but you can't sit on opportunities like this. There's been other competitors in the space that you watch once they hit this certain level, it ended up being very hard to get the market that you wanted because you missed out. You didn't move fast enough. And I think that's like, I love the advice that you just gave, but it's also like the speed to deal here for people that want to achieve that in their life or their career. Like it's now. You have to move on this.
And it's not only because of we're growing rapidly and you know, markets make it snatched up. There's only so much land, right? Once that land's gone unless you buy it again. So and I think that's a route that some folks take, right? If they've got a good piece of land, they'll purchase it before they ever become a franchisee. And then we do a really strong evaluation piece of making sure that is going to be a great land for one of our schools. But yeah, like you said, I making sure that we're aligning with the right franchisee, the right piece of land. We still have a lot of opportunity in the biggest markets that we're in, Houston, Dallas. So we're excited to continue growing the brand. I think that's a testament to Michael Brown and the entire Brown family and their commitment to really growing this thing.
I appreciate that. And look, for you, I like the good guys in franchising, and you're one of them. If I'm looking at a business opportunity, I'm looking at the good guys matched with an investment, and most of the times those don't align.
Yeah.
And you keep going back to the culture, but I can see it top down. Like there's a commitment to excellence, a commitment to franchisee success, a commitment to protection of who comes into the club. And then that resonates in the way that you're obviously talking about this business opportunity. I appreciate you sharing some of your personality and some of your insight on marketing with us today.
Yeah, Nick, I appreciate it, man.
For Colin, I am Nick. If you want to learn more about Children's Lighthouse, go visit the franchise site or read around the web. There's plenty more to learn about this and ask questions. Reach out to Colin on LinkedIn if you have more questions about marketing. Take care, everybody.